More than 15,000 boats were sunk during the Second World War, and while their cannons have long since been silenced, they still represent a threat to us today. 3 Pacific nations are urging Japan to address the shipwrecks that litter their waters, raising concerns about their reserves of oil and chemical weapons. So joining us this morning is Martin Mediwake. He is a marine biologist. Welcome to your morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
What kind of threats can shipwrecks from the Second World War pose to ecosystems and thereby people today?
So a ship is actually, to be able to function, it's already a complex combination of various chemicals. You have the metal hull, which can leak heavy metals such as copper, zinc, lead. You have the ship paints, you have fire suppression systems, and of course, you need oil and greases as well as the fuel to make everything operate. If we're talking about warships, you have the addition of the presence of these explosives and or chemical warfare agents, which unfortunately after years of corrosion can start leaking into the environment. So you have a very complex, constantly changing chemical footprint associated with every wreck.
The USS Arizona was sunk in Pearl Harbor back in 1941. It's estimated that it will continue leaking oil for the next 500 years. How much worse will the threats you describe become if the ships are just simply left where they are?
Yeah, what we're actually seeing now is most of these ships have been down there for 80 years, and these corrosion processes accelerate over time, where now a lot of them are losing the structural integrity and they're starting to collapse onto themselves due to their own weight. Mm-hmm. So we're finally seeing tanks rupturing and a rapid release of these chemicals. Actually, in the case of the USS Arizona, this has been investigated in the 90s by the US Navy as well as the park services there. They expect that the wreck will also at some point violently collapse and therefore release all that oil in a much more rapid pace than the 500 years.
Something I found interesting on this story is that ships sunk in international waters are considered war graves, and they can't be disturbed. But even if they weren't, what would the process be like to remove the dangerous materials from these ships look like? And the argument can be made that is it more disruptive to try and remove them, and could you potentially cause more harm by trying to remove them than leaving them where they sit?
So the technology is there. We have a process called hot tapping. It basically means that you drill into the hull at the position where you know that the oil reserves are present, and you inject the hot water to liquefy the fuel that's still there and pump it out. So you're displacing the fuel by water. So the technology is there. The issue is that that has consequences for the preservation of the wreck. The oil is slowing down the corrosion process, whereas the water will actually accelerate the process. And you have this element of the war grave status. You don't really want to promote the collapsing of these wrecks onto the remains of loved ones whose families are still around today.
Well, Japan as a country is seeing increased pressure to address the problems of shipwrecks from the Second World War. There are ships that belong to all of the Allied and Axis powers sitting at the bottom of the ocean. We've created this map where the dots indicate where these shipwrecks are. I mean, look at them. This is incredible. Who should be responsible then for cleaning them up?
Yeah, the global conflicts, the 2 world wars are the #1 source of wrecks all over the globe, unfortunately. The problem starts when the international laws start colliding. For decades, we've tried to preserve these sites. Due to their cultural, historical value, we've tried to prevent people looting these wrecks for goodies. And nowadays, those exact laws that we imposed on trying to preserve these sites are working against us when we're trying to remediate environmental impacts. So now we have a complex international law that actually dictates that a wreck, especially war wrecks, are the joint responsibility of both the state where it originally was sailing for, as well as the state in whose waters it's present.
Martin Mediwake, it's a fascinating story. Thank you for joining us this morning to tell us more.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.